everything. The county takes
All
you a lot
right,
of
it's 9 o'clock. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We're in first order for approval of the agenda.
Hearing no additions. I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda today.
I will second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We need approval for Monday, March 28th, 2022 minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes, but changing the word down to up.
Please reference where.
In the fiscal year 23 net current property taxes, 9,066,000. Switch after that to up from that.
Where did you get it?
Yep.
Nice catch. I'll make a motion to approve with that
I
correction.
will second that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First item on the agenda is City of Templeton voluntary annex.
Got another set of minutes.
Yeah, can we do
Oh,
the Wednesday,
sorry.
Thursday?
And I'll make a motion for those.
Excuse me.
And I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve March 31st, 2022 minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I apologize for skipping that. First item on the agenda is City of Templeton voluntary annexation, Templeton's Rise Spirits LLC. Do believe are you going to be speaking on behalf or just here
If
to?
you have any questions, I can try to answer. Should have all the information.
We do.
have the city clerk to send it up.
So we've done this once before. I don't remember how long ago it was. It's just been several years, but the explanation I got is that they're expanding, which I think is a good thing, so.
Their plan is to construct another barrel warehouse identical to the one they currently
To back up for 1 second, can you introduce yourself so everybody knows?
have. Kim Barron's mayor, city of Templeton.
Thank you.
So yeah, they were scheduled to start construction any day, so. Ready to roll. Hopefully construction completed by the end of the year. The current barrel warehouse will be full by then, so they need additional storage.
So the annexation is just the area that they're lot, right? So there's no, they will be accessing that probably from their own property then, right?
Correct.
Any correspondence, questions from the public?
No.
No, is there anything online about this subject?
Nothing I see. Nothing that I see right now.
And I assume we don't need a motion because we're doing a resolution.
No, they sent a sample or a resolution for us to use at the boards.
Do you guys have any more questions or discussions on this topic? We'll go ahead and move down to item 2 to the resolution.
I will make a motion that we adopt Carroll County Resolution 2022-007. That would be the approval of the annexation.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Roll call?
Houseman,
Yes.
Ruggles,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Miners,
Yes.
Shetler.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I'll pass this around. There's a place here for everyone to sign.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work down there, Ken.
So, been fun so far.
That's what makes it work. It's the fun part.
All right, item number 3, Carroll County Public Health Restructure. I assume, Dean, you're gonna take the lead on this. And if we do, I will say, if anybody in the room helps Dean with this presentation, just state the name and.
Well, I need a copy of it too, so I'll just email it to Rhonda and then have the original too. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to turn it over to the Board of Health Chairman to address the board.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Melanie. I have a handout. I know I shared this last year. I only made like 9 copies at home, so if anybody else needs a copy, but this is the framework that was adopted by CDC in September 2020 for redesign of public health, trying to bring public health practice, the framework of it up to what current practice and future practice is dictating. So these are the 10 essential public health services that CDC is wanting every state to then have their local boards of health enforce by having these essential health services as the framework for how you're comprising your health department. So again, just kind of wanted to have this as background so that you understand what goes into the framework of the health department. Again, this was revised September 2020. It didn't have a lot of fanfare because obviously we were in the middle of the pandemic at that time. So with that, this was really kind of the forefront of what brought up some of our discussions over a year ago with the potential for looking into increasing efficiencies with the 3 divisions that were underneath the local board of health. And that's why last summer we came and asked if we could have a formal assessment because the board felt that there were opportunities to make some changes that would reflect more in line with the vision of public health today and going into the future. Looking at the lead of the state health department, how they have recently combined with THS, that's significant. To have a merger like that, where you're wanting to have more efficiencies, increased collaboration, increased communication that can be for the benefit of the public's health at large, or the health of the public at large. So after that assessment was completed, it really, we thought, brought to light some themes that we were seeing before, but it really validated and put it into writing. Number one, that the need for increased transparency, better communication, outreach overall throughout our divisions, more collaboration, and to overcome that there's a perception that public health is just focused on in the city of Carroll. So, whether that's fair or not, we just can't discount that that's the perception. So we felt that we needed to look at this strategically and really have a vision, because we were lacking. The Board of Health had not provided a vision for the departments, had not provided strategic goals, and so we're trying to learn from that. We want to try to build a structure where there's no ambiguity, where it's very clear, where it can be very transparent, and where you can really have good goals measurements to show whether you're being successful or not in that vision. So with that, the board, again, it's been discussion for well over a year. We had a meeting last week and there was a vote to do a full restructure, and that includes not renewing the contract with St. Anthony that will expire on June 30th. So with that, the public health nursing function, environmental health, home care aides, what we would recommend is all of those are merging into one department. You can have some increased efficiencies there, have a strategic goal or strategic vision that guides the work of everyone within that department. You need to also look at you can't get past the glaring workforce issue that we have in the state of Iowa right now. So looking to the future, oh my God, if Carrie would be in a car accident tomorrow or anything like that, you know, has this wealth of information in that position. Could environmental health continue to move forward in Carroll County and Crawford County without Carrie? We need to be able to have a little bit more cross-training within the departments. Look at ways that, especially for the home care aides, that is not population health focused. So IDPH is changing their funding for our local public health services grant, which is just a small part of the overall public health budget. But that's about roughly 70,000 each year. And we've always broken down, had a percentage of that went to public health nursing and a percentage went to Megan and home care aides. Well, we're not going to be able to put that portion of the grant towards home care aides within 4 years, because that's not population health. But it fills an assurance function if you look at your 10 essential services. And what came through in our assessment was a lot of people saying, please don't ever take this away, which I was not expecting to get that level of feedback. So again, that home care aides, that helps prevent unnecessary hospitalizations, unnecessary institutionalizations, unnecessary nursing home admissions. So we need to have some more efficiency ways that we can perhaps use home care staff, maybe for some public health function or vice versa, so that we can make both areas more viable long-term in those funding streams. So I guess with that, we have a subcommittee that's formed. We don't know exactly what that staffing structure will look like yet. We're investigating that right now. Very confident that there are a lot of different directions to take, but nothing that would increase the tax asking that was already allocated for this year. It will be a work in progress. As I know we discussed in the public presentation too, grant writing was another big component that was addressed in the assessment, showing that we're budgeting less than most other counties for public health, but our tax asking is a higher percentage than other counties. So other counties are supplementing more grant dollars. So we need to get on board with that as well. But again, we're not certain quite if that would be requesting a new position within public health for next year. Is that requesting a position for the county? Is that just looking at a partnership with Region 12? Or is that looking at a partnership with surrounding counties where each surrounding county pays a small portion? That's going to take a little bit of time to figure that one out. I guess that is it. Dean, is there anything else? Or?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I don't think the Board of Health is asking the Board of Supervisors of anything. We're just making them aware of the direction that Carroll County Public Health is the direction that they would like to go to.
I can go first. I was at the board meeting and the no vote was concerned about the timing of it, getting everything done in less than 3 months now. Can you describe for everybody what the plan is, or for me too, as far as how it's going to happen that quickly?
Well, we have subcommittee formed with Dr. Hine, myself, Carrie, Megan at Home Care Aides, and then Heather Longby from IDPH. And Heather's expertise obviously is invaluable. She knows exactly what the minimum standards, assurances that we have to meet in that time frame. And she's also assured us that we feel pretty comfortable that nothing is going to fall through the crack after July 1. If we don't have, say, a nurse on staff, or if we don't have that shared position with nursing, if there would be a foodborne outbreak, we can refer back to IDPH and their epidemiologists to help with an investigation if we don't have that staffing in place yet. So one of those worst case scenarios, we feel pretty confident we'll have that coverage.
Then my other question is the administrator, the new charge person, is that going to be an RN and an administrator, or what requirements is the subcommittee looking for, or do you know
That's,
yet?
yeah, that's where we'll be using the input from the subcommittee to make a full recommendation back to the Board of Health. Ideally, it would be nice to have an administrator of that health department. Now, that will be an interim role. We assume starting July 1, we'll take that recommendation. We'll put in, basically build our position description for what we'd like to see in there. Could it be a potential of a co-interim director right now? It could potentially be Carrie and Megan taking on those duties until we have that full position description or structure that is approved by the board. So basically, you just at this point need to have what we would like to see is one person where they're making the decisions and making recommendations back to the board. Like they've done that research instead of having 3 different people coming back with their recommendations. Just kind of streamline it a little bit more and make sure that, all of these divisions are all Carroll County Public Health. And we need to look at all of them globally that way, instead of just pulling apart. I mean, environmental health still in the org chart falls underneath IDPH. It is, when they did their restructure with DHS, they don't even have it listed for how, which department or which division they even look at it as underneath IDPH, but it is public health. So we have to, kind of retrain our brain a little bit. When you hear public health, I think a lot of times you kind of go towards healthcare, and that's really not specifically what it is. It works in collaboration, but it's a different function. And again, that's why I really want to make sure everybody had these 10 essential services, because these are all, research-based, outreach-based, investigation, communication, collaboration. It's not provision of healthcare services.
Boy, there's a lot to digest here, but I'm just gonna dive right into it. What about the health programs that like New Opportunities provide for us? Are they going to be excluded from contracts? Are they going to be partners with you? Where is this all going to fall? I'm concerned that I don't see a plan, but yet we're kind of jumping off the end already.
Well, actually not really, because there's only 3 components that are underneath the governance of the Board of Health and under the oversight budget-wise of Carroll County Supervisors. And that is the public health nursing, environmental health, and the homemaker. And all of that was in the homemaker and public health nursing. That was the same department as of 27 years ago is when that change was made, when there was restructuring at the county with a change in the health department. So the programs that are at New Opportunities, those have a public health component to them also, but that's not under the governance of the county. They already have their contracts set up directly with IDPH because they are a community action agency. So they need to have collaboration with the Board of Health. That's why a lot of times the New Opportunity programs will come and make a presentation, because they need to show IDPH that they are informing the local Board of Health, even though they don't have a contract with the local Board of Health. So there is that, I see that being increased as well, to make sure that we are utilizing what programming is already in place, that we can all work together and make sure we're not duplicating any services, and to make sure that moving forward, we're looking for any potential gap filling services to fill into the cracks there. But technically, your Carroll County Public Health Department as part of these 10 essential services, and especially under the assurance portion, if you don't provide that service, you should be directing the public where to get that service. So that's where that collaboration is really key, with working with all partners within the county, and really, being that resource and information.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I found out we had a new county nurse by reading a memo that come by, and I seen that there was a different name at the top. And it's like, okay, so how come no one ever communicated that to me? No one. And that I see as a flaw. Now, I don't know where that problem lies. It's not a huge problem, but we had one. I mean, at least we weren't without one, and I didn't know it. But yet, I also know that some of the partnerships that we've had, especially with St. Anthony's, has been very good. I'm not sure we could have made it through the pandemic without their partnership. They provided us a lot of pieces to the pie that I don't know if we could have scrambled and found, even in your department. So I understand where we're headed here, I think. I've talked to lots of other counties about making this particular move. But sometimes it isn't quite as green as grass over there when you get over there. But I do know what I have, and we've had some very good partnerships with St. Anthony's and other people that they pulled us through some real tough time here. We just came through, and I hope that everybody doesn't lose the sight of that. That they could be a very good partner going forward here. But I'm scared that I was kind of in the impression that we were going to spend another year working on this and not quite move quite so fast. Because like I said, I've asked questions, but I never really had a chance to sit down and get a lot of answers on. And I guess as I've found out more, Board of Health is kind of its own critter, and I can control your funding and I can control your appointments. But other than that, you're kind of go whatever direction you want. So I hate it, but I just, my number one goal is I do not want to lose sight of the people getting these services. I don't care where we go. I'm just saying, if that happens, I'm going to be really, really upset.
Just to address a couple of things, I guess first, the memo that you're talking about with the nurse, I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't remember what form I read. Is that Nicole is the new county nurse. What happened to Sarah? I have no idea.
See, and we've had no control over hiring or staffing issues with the subcontract.
Okay. Yeah, and then that's a communication, and we've talked about that. There's been some minor communication things that I don't see them as huge, but just little things like that that can kind of add up.
Right, and that's what we feel too. You learn from the past, and I think you do, and build for the future. And the pandemic, obviously, the partnerships, the leadership from St. Anthony was vital for the entire county. We all hope nothing like that ever happens again. But if it would that response be any different if public health nursing was located here or new opportunities or somewhere else? Absolutely not. There's no hospital on the planet that's going to sit back and say, oh, no, we don't have public health. You know, that was healthcare collaboration. That was every organization looking out for the best interests of the citizens. And St. Anthony absolutely took the lead. Administration and Dr. Ugling, what they did with the town hall meetings, that was substantial. And I have no reason to believe that wouldn't be replicated regardless of the structure that we have, because that is what makes Carroll County and quite generally all of this area in western Iowa such a great place to live, because people do step up. So when you look at this structure, I just don't want to, it's hard not to, but I don't want you to think about just COVID as being a driving force or a reason, or what that did was really bring to the forefront the changes, the infrastructure changes that needed to occur with public health. Because again, as I mentioned, these 10 essential services, that was released in September 2020. You know, and that was a different administration. You know, it just shows that these essential services, it's nonpartisan. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change now with you know, a different party in control of the federal government. This is what they see right now. Public health did not take into consideration all the changes that were made 10 years ago when ACA went to the Affordable Care Act, and that went into effect. That really increased the number of people on health insurance, that increased the number of preventive services that were covered by insurance. So that really diminished a role of public health for being a safety net, as large of a safety net. Like back in the day, the Carroll County Public Health Nurse would have these huge child immunization clinics. You just don't see that type of need anymore. You still have to serve as that safety net, but the structure has changed, and the Board of Health did not recognize quick enough that structural change of basically an old model of public health to a new model that's reflected in these essential services. So we're just trying to look at a structure that long-term, you know, can provide those efficiencies and have that oversight and transparency and accountability.
Well, I'll go next. First, I gotta make sure there's no snow on top of this roof, because I'm sure it's steaming up there. Because I have been a little upset about this whole thing here today. And I understand the public health is their own, has their own authority and stuff like that. And that we only have certain controls. But with that, you take the authority, also comes heat. I think there's been through this whole thing, I'm beginning to now think there's been a pre-deceived goal from the beginning, and I think we probably waste our efforts on the study. The only reason I was for the study, because I think we need to look at things, and I think there's some things pointed out on both parts. I mean, we on this end are probably not as guilty. St. Anthony has been probably has got guilt in there, and Ed and I have had this discussion. He's admitted to that. But I thought there was a way that we could, and maybe I'm one of them kind of guys. I think when you got a structure set up, and with what the data we got out of the pandemic, we were one of the better counties in the state of Iowa. And I would think you would sit down, and I always used to model a sandbox, sit down in the sandbox and play nice together and make things work out. Get your disagreements or the errors that we have and make work for progress. It appears like that has not even going to be, has not even happened on both parties. And I am very disturbed by that fact. I think we had a good model. I mean, there were some issues there. Like I said, I think both parties were guilty. But if you guys want to go on your own the way you want, that's fine. But you know, you said that it's not going to cost us any money other than additional money. That better be that way, because I'm not going to vote for any more money.
Well, I can go last, I guess. I'm going to agree with everything that these guys have said and the questions that have been asked. My frustrations would be, so we had the meeting with the assessment with the Stevens Group in January. No, and I read over it again this weekend, and nowhere in there did I read end contract with St. Anthony's. That was never even an option. They liked the partnership. The county likes the partnership. I will agree with Jean, there was lack of communication, maybe transparency, lack of expectations, but I thought we were going to bring that to the board. Everybody sit down, write their expectations, and go forward. I'm not against trying to structure public health and maybe potentially bringing it back to county. Am I 100% for that? Probably not, because I'm not for bigger government. But I think that takes time, and to say you can get that done by July, I think is not obtainable, because there's some certain pieces, and I'm not the expert in Board of Health. But there's some pieces that are going to be missing that are going to be substantial as far as how to fill all those roles, how to do billing in one, that's going to cost money. And to hire a nurse or an administrator for 75,000, I don't even think that's obtainable. And I'll get to how that bothers me, the 75,000. Then I also kind of want to know, this assessment talked about transparency and communication, and we got blindsided here a little bit. Our backs are against the wall because Board of Health does have a lot of power, and you guys should, maybe. But to come to us and then say, so January was the assessment, the budget was set March 28th, and then the week later, we find out that the contract's going to be broken. On our miscellaneous budget request, it says St. Anthony's Regional Hospital, 75,000 / public health. To me, as an elected official, I have a problem with that because that's not being very transparent to the taxpayers. We delegated that money to St. Anthony's. Now, granted, we can go in and amend the budget and go to 0 or change the line item. I know that the name specifically in there doesn't have to reflect what it's going for. I don't think that'd be a very good elected move. I think the taxpayers need to know where their money is going. I am frustrated. I don't want to see public health go backwards, but I would have liked to have seen it being set up, seeing a strategic plan for 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, a mission statement. Maybe come to the board and have this discussion. I just think the lack of communication is clearly there. And I agree with Jane. I hope there's no ulterior motive behind this. Because that would, I don't know. Obviously, at the end of the day, I think all of our concerns and highest priority will be the general public. And I don't want to see us burning bridges as we're trying to build our own public health, because they have been nothing but great partners. And do we need to diversify? We've talked about that, going to Manning, going to different clinics. I'm concerned that we're heading in the wrong direction, not having enough answers, enough structure right now. But our hands are tied. And did the public have any say in this? Was there an agenda printed or sent out to the public? Did they get notice?
I couldn't find it.
I post the notices here.
Yeah.
That makes sense with me. I'd be happy to.
I received those agendas a long time ago. Under the public records law, public bodies were sent out on request. If you had to ever send it to.
So those are just my
I'd like to see it
concerns.
right now. What was your agenda? For the meeting today?
It was public health instruction. I
No
don't
mention of
have,
St. Anthony? No mention of canceling contract? Got fair notice? I don't think so.
Chairman, I'd like to just say.
1 second, can you state your name, please?
Ed Smith, CEO of St. Anthony Hospital. As an organization, St. Anthony is proud of over a quarter of a century partnership that we've had with the county and the service that we've been able to provide the citizens for public health nursing. As it's previously been mentioned, we were asked to come in by the Board of Supervisors at that time to either resolve a complicated issue. Both organizations, the county and St. Anthony, have been operating under a good faith, ongoing agreement. We can't find our contracts in either the county or St. Anthony because it's so old, but it has been working. I'm proud of my staff has been able to provide to the county this last 2 years during the pandemic. I will say we were one of the best counties in the entire state. Our health status reports, and it's a collective effort. I'd like to think that we're part of that as well. Is one of the highest in the states and one of the highest nationally for a rural county. That doesn't happen by accident, and I think that there's a lot of good that's come about from that. What I'm hearing is we're being given notice today. It comes as a little bit of a shock. That Swan Lake meeting in January. I heard loud and clear that we were going to, as a community, as a county, work at a strategic planning process and solicit as much information to help the Board of Health to come up with a public health strategic plan. I also heard that it suggested that we have a formal contract. And you all have your discretion to we serve at the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Health. If you want to move in a different direction, that is fine. But we were under the understanding we were going to formalize that contract that we've been working under informally for decades. So again, appreciate the service that we've been able to provide, and would like to have the opportunity to do it again. But if that's not the case, I stand by how proud I am of our staff and how we've been able to work in a collaborative effort with the county.
I guess I'll just comment on, something that's been an issue since I've been on the supervisor board, and that's the financial oversight of the partnership and the difficulty that the supervisors and the Board of Health has had to get any kind of answers about the finances of that are taking place. Dollars that are going into public health, but not necessarily coming out of public health because there's no record of it. They choose to keep those to themselves because they're a private nonprofit. I've always thought there was a tremendous conflict of interest, and this is not how the county government works. We have to account for every dollar for the taxpayer, and that just has been, I think, an issue for a long time. And every time that the St. Anthony would come to the board and request support, there was so much gray area in their financial reporting to the county. And I guess, going forward, if the way it's going to be now, I mean, we will have budget pre-budget meetings with the public, with all three departments of Carroll County Public Health. We will know what they're asking us. We'll know how they're spending their money. We'll be able to know what the revenue is. I think there's revenue that's coming in that that the county does not see. I just think actually even just the financial part of this is, as far as supervisors who support public health, that they're not in the know on what that is. That financial oversight is not there.
Just to add to that, and I didn't want to add to that in this setting, but you wonder about anything falling through the crack. Pretty confident with the public health programming that's occurring right now, that's not going to be an issue. For January and February, The number of nursing hours reported for public health, 75 for the 2 months combined. 56.5 support staff hours for the 2 months combined. That's not even 0.25 FTE for nursing, not even 0.2 FTE for support staff. There should be 328 billable hours for both months combined. This is the direction that we've been seeing with public health programming. That is why we want to create some efficiencies, create some oversight, and provide that direction. There's been ambiguity over who should be providing that direction. We need to step up now and make it clear.
Oh.
And there was $22,972 of staffing charge for that 132 staff hours.
Does anybody have anything else to add? Mr. Warden?
Just a couple legal questions, Madam Auditor. Under the currently approved budget by this board, in what area and in what service area is the environmental health department funded?
Environmental health,
Yeah.
service area 3.
Not the board of health,
They all come out of service area 3.
service area.
Megan carries.
So it's not under the board of health?
No.
Okay, what approved budget is presently funding homemaker health?
Dollar amount?
No, service area 3,
Yes,
not under the board of health.
no, there are different line items,
So the Board
different
of-
function numbers.
So the Board of Health is asking for an immediate amendment to the budget to take homemaker health aides, environmental health, and put them under Board of Health.
Well, they all are all their own departments. Megan and home care aides are already in the same department. Carrie's in a different department.
Yeah. It's
They're all the
service area
same
3,
service area 3.
not allocated to the Board of Health.
The 75,000 is allocated for the health.
Homemaker health aides, environmental health is not allocated to the Board of Health.
They're all different line
They've
items.
never submitted claims or ever approved salaries or done any of that administratively for those two departments,
The board,
the Board of Health.
Board of Health sets those salaries.
Approve the claims for environmental health department.
They do, I guess. at their
Every
meetings.
meeting.
I don't see minutes from their meetings, so I don't know what they do in their meetings.
I don't recall the environmental health salaries ever being set by the Board of Health.
Yes, because I remember after she called me about whether they could do this, delete the contract. And I told her I didn't think it fit, and the longer we talked, I remember a situation where there was raises were made to environmental health that was different than what the Board of Supervisors approved for the rest of the employees. And that was brought up at that time due to the code that they're under, they have that authority to do that. So they got that raise, but we deducted that amount from the budget that year. So, yeah, they did it one time, so that's what made my brain come out with that file back that they had it.
I just want to find out who these employees answer.
So I do know they did get a raise one time that was not,
And the very same thing, as you said, Gene, happened with home care aides, in that they wanted to raise them the starting wages of their individuals, so that it wasn't so difficult to hire. And so the Board of Health did that, but then the supervisors made an adjustment then to the budget because of that.
And just for you, Ed, I asked and asked and asked. Someone did produce a contract, according to the original St. Anthony contract. I'm glad to share that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right.
So I'm trying to get a little more clear here, which is John just asked. The budget falls underneath us for environmental health and home health care. But you, as the Board of Health, make the direction on what they do, the policies that they follow. Is that correct? So why are they not all underneath the Board of Health?
They are. We're
So
just
why
trying
don't-
to combine the efficiency of it. It per IDPH, environmental health, home care aid, and public health nursing. Because of where the funding flows through, in what function that they need for the community. That's under local board of health governance to oversight.
So does that make them not be a county employee when they're not entitled to county benefits?
So they're still county employees.
I would almost want to question that. By code, instead of you guys are on its own entity.
Do you know that answer, John?
Board of Health is what we call a statutory board. It has its own rights, powers, and duties and statutes. It can do its own motion. Sure. Set up a checking account.
It's on payroll,
Sure.
on everything.
Sure.
Well, at the Board of Health wishes, I take this opportunity to thank St. Anthony's for your many, many, many years of providing us a great service that you did. And the contract that we were able to hold together. I'm sorry this did not turn out as though I expected, but I want to thank you.
And I want to say one thing, last Monday, when I think Dean said they were having a meeting, one of the comments I made was that we need to continue the partnerships between everybody. And I said that for a reason. And I hope that continues. I guess my biggest anxiety here is this is happening too quick. And I think we should look at all avenues to resolve those issues other than just walking separate different paths. And I want to thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move forward on the agenda. Item number 4, review Carroll County Employee Handbook.
So you all, I emailed you. I tried to do my best to white out the names and stuff, so it would be anonymous. So you guys had just a few suggestions that I received. So hopefully you guys all have those. And I also emailed you the current handbook. And I tried to include the addendums. So you guys kind of knew what we all had going as far as vacation and stuff like that. It gets a little confusing because when we made changes to the handbook back in 19, there's employees that are on the old vacation plan and there's employees on the new. So I just wanted to make sure you guys had all the information.
Just a quick comment. Going forward, can we have dates on the addendum so we know which one's the latest, greatest, current?
Well, I'd like to state that Renee prepared those,
Okay.
but I'd be happy to put a date on
Yeah, I
it.
think. they
Because
need
that
one.
makes more
Well,
sense.
because somebody could have one, like Zach could have somebody out there at Rhodes that has one that's 20 years old.
Sure,
How do you know it's been superseded?
right, I get what you're saying. I will,
When
I
talked to
think these are
Jamie-
Word documents, so I should be able to do
Okay,
that. on
perfect,
there.
thank you.
So all in all, if I have this added correctly, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 opinions on the employee handbook. I think 6. Guess I missed one. One of them was duplicated that I'd received, so that might be it.
Oh, you talking about each individual?
Yeah, I just want to
That
make
could
sure
be,
everybody.
I never counted them. I just counted how many I got like from the person, so.
And I would like to thank people for sharing their opinion, because it does matter to hear from the employees and how, and we do know that the employee handbook affects their lives, but we do appreciate to hear feedback before we start into this. I can't guarantee that there'll be any answers or decisions made today, but I think it's a good opportunity to bring up for discussion, because we had talked a year ago about bringing this up every year for discussion. Does anybody want to start? I can start. It doesn't matter. There's a few things I've highlighted throughout the whole handbook. Now, mind you, when you bring up an employee handbook, a lot of times the employees are going to look straight to the vacation. But there's other items within the employee handbook that kind of have importance as well. I highlighted, I'll just start off, recording work hours. Do we do that?
Okay.
That's one of my things I want to talk about, so.
Okay, page 13, recording work hours. The Fair Labor Standards Act requires accurate and complete record keeping of employee work hours, including overtime hours and paid time off. I'm unaware, and maybe that's just me, do we do?
I
Some-
think after secondary road. we do it, too.
Some departments do a great job of keeping track of time, but not all. I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to call anybody out in a public meeting, but
I've asked before, the county doesn't even own a single time clock,
I
correct?
do not, I don't
So
know.
there
Do you
is
guys have
nobody-
time clock at work? No, no.
I asked him about it, and he said the roads guys, or the outlying sheds, they just write theirs down, but you do funnel them through every week. Every week they come in.
So he's a good example. The ambulance would be another great example of meticulously keeping track of people's time. That doesn't happen over all departments.
And one thing, you guys use your time, you also build, or there's certain parts of your budget to buy that, don't you?
Right, we look at what, I mean, I guess the overtime hours, we try to track what overtime hours, because it depends, it's overtime or comp time, because it's not all based on what's paid out, it's, if they go to comp time as well, but we track all of it.
But don't you use like some that determine how much is used for snow removal and stuff like that?
A little bit,
And
yes.
construction, that's what I thought.
Zach, was there? I don't recall exactly what it was, but it seemed like there was a conflict between the DOT's reporting and the way we report ours. Dave went through this with me, and that was because I visited with him once about time clocks, and there was an issue, and does anything pop forward?
Not that I'm aware of. I guess the only difference, or I guess the rub would be when, for us reporting, we have a work code, I'll call it, for all the different job duties that our guys do, where, you know, sitting in the office, you have myself, I think my time gets billed, split out between administration and engineering in our work codes. They have probably 60 different work codes that they use, depending on whether they're hauling granular material, or they're blading a road, or plowing snow, or whatever it might be. And depending on what they're doing that day, that's where their time gets charged. So we can report that to the DOT in an annual report. So we're the only department that has those work codes set up because of how we have to report to the DOT. And that's been in place for a long time, and I don't foresee that ever changing.
So since we're talking about this, can I talk about, I don't want to budge, but, okay. Well, I'm going to start this by saying I don't want to be perceived as the bad guy and the one trying to make a bunch of changes. However, every year when we get audited, that is the thing we get. Where's your timesheets? You're paying people, where's their timesheets? And we don't get them for everybody. We don't have a policy in place that says if you don't turn in a timesheet, you're not getting paid. You know, so I reached out to other counties to say, how do you guys do payroll? Because we do it now where, this is only for the full-time, part-time are paid 2 weeks late. But a full-time person, we're paid on the 15th and 30th of every month. And it says the first payday of the month is the payment for the 1st through the 15th. And the second month is the 16th through the 30th. So we're basically paying on the 15th, we're getting paid for the 1st through the 15th. And we run payroll 2 to 3 days prior to the 15th to get everything done, get it to the bank. And what happens is, and this doesn't happen very often, but I bet it's happened half a dozen times in the last year and a half, where you'll hire somebody, they're full-time, they work for 3 or 4 days and then they quit. Well, we may or may not find that out. If the department head doesn't tell us, we're running payroll like we normally would, and we're paying people for 2 or 3 days that they didn't work. It's kind of a bookkeeping nightmare.
So you're running on the assumption that they're gonna complete
do,
the weekend schedule.
Because the period runs from the 1st to the 15th and we pay on the 15th. And it causes issues with balancing because, you know, we do a lot of ACH, and we're giving that paperwork to the treasurer, and then we're trying to make corrections, and then it's not good for her either. I mean, we're causing her more work. So it's just a pain in the butt. So after that happened a couple times ago, I was upset because it is frustrating. It's a lot of work to try to fix that kind of stuff. Asked out some counties on how they did it. Pocahontas and they actually changed their handbook to read that if you don't have your timesheets turned in, you don't get paid, basically, which that's great. The problem we run into is we can't expect people to turn in their timesheets for the 1st to the 15th and run payroll on the 13th. So you have to change the way you're paying your employees, and you'd be 2 weeks behind. So you'd actually go, whenever you set this up, you'd have to go a whole month without getting a paycheck. Because the paycheck you get on the 15th, you wouldn't get that. You'd get it on the 30th for the 1st or the 15th, because now you're 2 weeks behind. I personally, when I get paid on the 15th, there's bills I pay on the 15th and there's bills I pay on the 13th, and they're the same every month. You can't just say next month, well, you're not gonna get it. You'd have to set it up and let everybody know and say, we're gonna do this in 6 months. We're gonna do this in a year, to give everybody plenty of time to set money aside for that month that it's gonna be weird.
Right.
I personally don't want to do that because I know how I am, and I just want to do the
So
same.
if
I
a
don't want to
snowstorm
take
hits and
changes.
we get a bunch of overtime on the 14th, their paycheck has already been cut.
Overtime's
basically.
cut, it paid.
Oh, it does, okay.
It's different. This would mainly be for just your regular full-time people that work 37.5, 40 hours a week, don't probably have overtime.
But Courtney, that would not be a full month, wouldn't it be like 2 weeks?
No, it could.
We
be-
just run it through the
best you
1st
could
and the
do would be
15th.
3, I think, is that correct?
Yeah,
The
I mean,
best
I
you
would
could do.
keep the structure of everybody still getting paid on the 15th or the 30th. It's just in order to pay people for the time that they worked and have time to have them turn it in, and for us to run it, you'd have to run it 2 weeks behind.
Mhm.
So you'd
Yeah, that's
have,
what I'm saying, it would only be 2 weeks that would be actually behind, right?
correct,
They'd go a
but
month between paychecks. They get paid on the
It would be the
30th.
first time, when it
Just one time.
when it was implemented, it would be a one-time bite the bullet.
and, people may take it as, well, I'm getting shorted, those 2 weeks. Well,
But after you're done working, you
when
still get a
you
paycheck.
quit, you're
2
gonna
weeks
have
later.
2 weeks, and then you're gonna get your final check.
Courtney, how about, now I'm just thinking outside the box here. How about we issue a flat fee? Instead of going the whole month, we issue a flat fee for those 2 weeks. It's gonna be, it'll be shorted. You know what I'm saying?
That'd
Will make
be
you
kind of
a-
a pain in the butt.
A nightmare to try.
Well, we'd have to go
sort
and
out.
adjust every single employee's salary.
Correct. You'd have to do it one
Yeah.
time,
Yeah, we would. Like I said, it'd be kind of a pain in the butt.
very much. so.
It could be done, yes.
Yeah.
But, and I've had this probably a year and did not want to bring it up because I don't like to be the person that,
You
oh
and I
my God,
talked
the
about-
auditor said we don't get paid for a month.
Yeah,
But I think personally, I think if we give our employees enough time that they're aware of it, and, somebody said, oh, 6 months, and I'm thinking like a year, or let's start this January 1st, or let's start it July 1 of, not this July, obviously, but because we've been doing it this way for ever since I've worked here. I'm not in any hurry to make this
I think we need to
change,
get
but I
it
think
right,
we
though.
should make the change at some point.
Especially for auditing and.
If we
if
keep
people
getting
leave-
dinged.
We get dinged every audit year.
Well, and the playing
For sure.
catch up, if it goes through, yeah, I think we need to do it once and do it right. Like bullet, but the timing's gonna be, if you do it the first year, everybody's gonna say, that was over the holidays. I'm always broke that time.
So let's do
yeah.
it July 1 of 2023, or something like
Kick in
that.
the next fiscal year.
And I would say, I'll bet you 80% of the private industry is in.
They have to,
I've
unless you've got a
never-
live accountant
Yeah.
signing the check on the
I've
day
never,
of.
I haven't worked at a ton of places, obviously, but every place I've worked was always 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
behind.
only been that rare.
Yeah.
We run-
Like I said, I don't like being the bad guy.
So then how then we should be setting up some sort of time record.
Well, you could still use the sheets like we use now. They're signed off by the department head. The department head is signing off that those employees work those hours. I don't think you need to change that. Everybody, I believe, each department has access to timesheets, whether they're a little more formal or just kind of an
Well, is
Excel
there a
spreadsheet.
program we could get done over
There
cell
is.
phones?
There is.
Well, Tyler offers
well, now,
timekeeping as well,
I'm
but
gonna tell you right now, if you go cell phone route, you're gonna have to compensate that employee that's using that cell phone.
And the thing we have with the Tyler thing is, like
That's
each
gonna come.
department could plug in their employees' hours. And the employee signs off on their hours, department head signs off, and it's all done through Tyler. Well, that's great, but not every department has access to Tyler, so that'll cost more money. So I think on the onset, I'm thinking the timesheet,
The manual handwritten time sheet
Yeah, the reason I was thinking.
just because of,
with a real signature instead of electronic.
Offsite, you know,
We don't have internet access and that'd
that's
be,
what I was thinking about.
it'd be tough to.
it would be. And, Tyler said, well, we have a thing where you log in to Tyler and then you're you're clocked in for the day. I said, that's great. But not
We do.
everybody
Yeah.
works on a computer. Some people are out there maintaining, so
Yeah, only the two.
I don't see any issue with our timesheets the way they work now.
Does anyone know what like Kemper, Carroll, Barner uses for check-in?
I'm-
Or do they not?
They have an app.
Clock, yeah.
They do.
Clocks at farm.
Kemper doesn't call.
It would be nice.
Now, the timesheets don't apply to exempt employees. So elected officials, department heads that are exempt, like Zach, you probably don't get overtime. So you would be exempt from this. However, I think it would be important to still keep turning in timesheets, One thing on that is, when we had everybody turning in their timesheets and we know if they took a sick day or if they took a vacation day, we can actually plug that into our payroll, and when they get their checks, their balance is gonna be right on the check, which I think is kind of nice. I think employees would maybe appreciate that, to kind of know. A lot of them just know, but, if they're turning those into us, we could actually plug in, when we get started, the lump sum of what they have at that point, and then,
And my previous employer did that, it shows you what you balance. All the first 2 days.
and I don't like to say, well, if you don't turn in your timesheet, you're not getting paid. But
Facts are facts.
most places, if you don't turn in your hours, you're not getting a paycheck. I think it'd be a good policy to put in place that you turn in a timesheet.
Courtney, is that gonna make us another paperwork storage issue, or can
No,
we do that
I-
electronically? And
Well, if they bring over sometimes I think they're emailed or even faxed, but a lot of times we can just scan those and just keep an electronic
Okay.
copy. Because
Didn't
usually
want
the
to
department
freeze.
head already has a copy that they sent us, and then we're trying to start scanning things and keeping electronic copies of it.
now, a new employee, depending on when you hire them in that cycle, they could be a month out for the first pay, or they could be 3 weeks out, depending on where you hire them.
So, like I said, I've had this for a long time, and I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't want to be that person, but
I think you and I talked about it after one of the audits, so we got dinged.
we
about
do,
it.
and it's like, you know what? It'd be nice to not get dinged on something that maybe we can change.
Yeah,
Like I said, it's gonna stink that month, but if we could, if you guys were in favor of that, at some point, we don't have to do it today, because I know there's a lot of other stuff, but at some point, let's set a date of what we would like, and we'll just make sure we get something sent out to every employee, put in their paycheck, and maybe put it in their paycheck several times, just to, because sometimes if you tell somebody
oh, yeah.
something now, and then a year from now, are they gonna remember that, or?
Like Scott's got a good point. I would rather not make this transition at the holiday time. I'd rather
Totally
make
fine
it
with that.
in
That's
summer.
why I think actually our fiscal year.
Fiscal year started.
It is a good opportunity.
And I give us a whole year. on that.
Well, more than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what I'd like to see is that we discuss all these today and that we think about them and come back at
Let's
it.
kick the
All right,
tires
that's all I
on
have
that
on
before we
Mine, no,
jump in.
But I know that's the fact that we get dinged on that all the time. I mean,
we do.
Grateful
If
to
you
get
send a letter out to all the department heads like you did, asking for this input, just saying this is a change probably gonna happen.
Well, if a change was made, I would make sure that, we'd have to give everybody a new handbook, and every employee have to sign off on the changes.
I would suggest at that time we do that. We just send
Absolutely.
a new handbook and with the changes.
I think the school systems are a month behind now.
Well, they get paid once a month at Carroll, I believe.
Yeah.
Which,
So you're-
that would make my job a
Never
lot
worked anywhere
easier,
that
but
wasn't
I,
a week.
That is a
I know.
ginormous
That makes
transition.
your job easier, makes the employee's job a lot harder.
yeah, getting paid once a month is a huge change to
Yes,
your
it is.
finances, for sure, But I think that this is possibly doable if we give employees enough
Well,
time to.
and you just had a change now with the Aflac thing. You didn't hear much on that, did you?
No, we didn't. I thought for sure people
So,
were
I
gonna be
mean,
really
you let
upset.
people know long enough in advance. I think we do this.
Well,
here,
we didn't
too.
even give any notice to that because we found out that our rounding wasn't working and we weren't paying in enough. So we were like, we have to deduct it just once because otherwise, when you split those odd premiums, it doesn't work out and then we were short. Yeah. No, heard nothing, but $120 and your whole check. Okay, like I said, that talked too long on the word.
All right, so we've touched base on, that was one thing I had highlighted, the reporting of work hours. Just go to page 15. We had a comment made on holidays. I don't know if I'll read out the comments. Obviously, these are anonymous, but there was a couple recommendations for additional holidays. Any comments?
Was that the Christmas?
Christmas Eve and, yeah.
I give you my opinion right now. I'm kind of neutral on Christmas Eve afternoon only. I absolutely believe that we should have the whole day of music. There's a lot of transactions that can happen. Not necessarily have to happen. People at the beginning, they have a good idea what their taxation looks like. They may want to do things differently than they did the year before. And you could see some transactions come through. Unfortunately, they get right up to the last minute.
A lot of people say vacation for those afternoons too.
Yeah.
I think that's what vacation's
Well,
for.
and I'm gonna jump back, and Scott brought up a good point, and I think that that's something that maybe as we go through this insurance, maybe we should bring PTO into the conversation. With this insurance, and there'd be no such thing as sick day, and there'd be no such thing as a vacation day. You just have these PTO hours. You use them however you wish.
Paid personal time off
Paid personal time off.
versus sick days.
Now that we're gonna throw that back onto the discretion of all the department heads, because you can't have them all gone once. I understand that. So they're gonna have to figure out a system to make that work.
Well, it's also gonna be more bearing on back on them because they're gonna make sure they got enough sick leave or personal time that they do get sick.
Exactly. I mean, it's a crapshoot. So I got
I mean,
15
there's two
PTO
sides to
days.
this
I'm gonna
coin.
go on a 3-week vacation and I
We're
come
kind of
home with
moving ahead.
pneumonia. We're in trouble.
Well, and I will say that there's a lot of places that don't have sick time. They just have PTO. The sick time, it's my understanding is, I think is pretty generous.
Is that
There are other
18 days?
places,
18
18
days?
days,
A day and a quarter.
Yeah.
a month or whatever.
18 days.
I think it's pretty
Generous.
generous based on places I've worked
144.
before. The purpose, I think, and I talked to somebody that was an auditor even before the one before me, so we went back. The purpose of that was to protect employees. So if somebody had a catastrophic illness and they had sick time maxed out, they could be gone for 6 months and still be getting a paycheck. So that was, I think, the design of it at that time, just to protect the employees,
Which is a good point.
you know.
It's a very valid point.
But
And
employees don't look at that.
I even had
A
one.
lot of,
Well, you hope you don't have to use it, you
Yeah.
know, but then when you offer a benefit to some for their health, or if they have sick time and you offer a benefit to some, but not all, then you have an unfair.
So, Can we go back and close out Christmas and New Year's Eve?
Yes.
before we go on sick time?
Now we're on
No,
sick
because
time.
I know there's a lot to get
But
into.
it falls into the PTO.
Yeah,
It
but
could fall into. PTO.
I'm not in
That's the reason I
favor
brought
for
that.
Christmas and New Year's Eve. Yeah, I think that's what vacation is for. That's my take.
So then how do you feel about the Friday after Thanksgiving? I saw that one on there. And I'm not saying take it away, but if we're gonna do vacation time for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, that's not technically a holiday. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying.
Right
we're
now,
gonna
it's
change it.
technically a holiday. It says Friday after Thanksgiving is a holiday.
I understand that, but that is not a recognized holiday. The day after Thanksgiving.
It's Black Friday, that's a holiday.
On the calendar, let me clarify,
Oh,
Every day
okay.
Black Friday.
Illegal, it's not illegal,
not a legal holiday.
but I mean, the courthouse must be closed if it says.
So I'm assuming that's why this got brought up, because we're accepting the day after Thanksgiving.
And if there's any mail that's going on Black Friday, you don't want to go again.
Well, and I think a lot of it is, we in the past have actually closed on Christmas Eve. I don't know about New Year's Eve, maybe even New Year's Eve. I don't know. I
We've
don't,
never been closed on New Year's Eve.
No.
At noon or the whole day?
Christmas Eve, we have been closed the whole day. But obviously,
So then
it wasn't
people
a
had to use
holiday, people had to
vacation.
use a
Yeah.
vacation. And the problem you have is, you know, when you're new, you ain't got nothing for time to take off, so it's kind of a bummer for them, because I know that some of them may have had to work, or had to work through lunches just to
Make up for those
make up
hours.
for that hours, but
Okay, so. If I have the general consensus, we'll kind of move forward. We've had a discussion, people put out their opinions. We're not making decisions today, so.
No, and I think I tend to agree with him on Christmas. If we want to take the whole day off, I think we need to do that. Personally.
Which that way the department head can plan accordingly. So that the office is still staffed.
Just making sure I touch base on all this. Okay. Let's move to the next page, page 16. Days of vacation. So we kind of started to discuss that a little bit. We brought it up. Right now, you can get 18 days, which I think in general consensus, that's pretty generous. Then the conversation got brought up. Do you consider
mean sick
them
time.
sick time?
you're talking about sick time.
There's a couple suggestions for family sick time from 5 to 10, 5 personal days per year. Instead of just 2. An incentive for maxed out sick time, turning 1 day of vacation, basically some sort of incentive for not using it all the time.
For not using up your whole thing.
That's it on that one. Any conversations on those?
So underneath the family illness, that was one of them. It says your department head may allow the use of sick time to take care of an ill family member. Examples, mother, father, spouse, children, sister, brother, including step and half brother, sister, for medical reasons. The use of this sick time shall not exceed 5 days per calendar year. And I think the way I understood it was 2 of the suggestions wanted that to be up to 10 days, 10 of the 18
Going from
days,
5 to 10. correct.
going to 5 to 10. And I don't have any heartburn with that. Again, it does say your department head may allow. And under sick time, the department head doesn't have to allow those 18 days. So basically, you're gonna get the blessing. But if you're getting 18 days anyway, instead of saying, "Oh, I got a sore tooth today because little Johnny's sore," lying to your boss, you just say, "Hey, my kid's sore."
Well, I mean, I had 5 when I had little kids
Yeah.
at home. I mean, if you've got 2 or 3, 4 kids, you know what happens. The one gets sick, and then if they start feeling better, you go back to work, and then the other one gets sick, you know, and
I have no
5
problem
days
changing. I
gets
mean,
gobbled up pretty quick if you have multiple children.
The employee accrues those days, 18 days per year, whether they use them on them or a sick family member. And it could be taken care of from your mom or dad. It's not just sick kids. I mean, I talked to Zach about it. I talked to Jamie about it. Yeah, I think that they may bend rules a little bit on it, as all department heads might, as far as, no, the handbook says you only have 5 days. But my personal thought, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I allow it. If my department, Stephanie says no.
I think it could be, the individual department head may have a feeling of who's being abusive, who's not.
I can see,
Yeah, no, I
I
get
can
it.
see litigation.
Well, that's
But I
why
mean,
it says may
They
allow.
already allow it. They already allow 5 days. What's? if
That's
you-
the may
I mean, it's
versus
already
the
there.
shall.
So we change it to 10, it's still the same verbiage. That's my take.
One of
but-
my concerns is that the employee better be aware of that. If they use that sick time for some other family member, that takes away from their other sick time.
Yeah, it comes out of the 18 hours.
So that they could wind up also be not getting that paid. That needs to be made aware.
And I don't know how often people
Yeah, I don't.
ask to exceed the 5 days, if there are cases of that, or if they maybe stretch the truth a little bit on themselves being sick when they are tending to a young one or a parent or a sibling. That's just my take. I'm only one vote.
No,
Well, if you had PTO,
that's-
Set in stone, there's your
Yeah.
days, use how
those are
you
your
want.
days, use them.
So if we went
I
to
like the idea.
If we went to PTO, would that just become 10 days? And then we wouldn't have to worry about the rollover of the extra accrued sick time and just get rid of that whole? Or would we give 18 days of PTO?
Do we have a June system of vacation?
Yeah.
After so many years, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
yeah, it's in the addendums and also in the handbook.
Roads is different as far as some of the older, well, not older, some of the more senior employees with years of longevity have a little bit different rules. They've been tightened up, it looks like.
Yeah, so the addendum applies to
Huh?
people before the handbook was changed,
Yeah, exactly.
which, I mean, if you're gonna make changes to how you, I mean, just sitting here, then we're gonna have the handbook. Are you
I
gonna make it active now and you're gonna possibly offend or bother employees that are under the vacation here and they've got their vacation here, and then you're making changes to PTO? Now do we have 6 addendums?
Oh.
And
I think if we went to PTO, regardless of what the dates were, we would get rid of all this sick leave, whether it's the employee or a family member or a stepbrother. That's just a thought. We could get rid of a couple of these categories.
Is eliminate all the categories and go to one.
Yeah.
So what would you do
I don't know
then?
For people that haven't
What would
acquired
you-
all the sick time.
Well, you could carry that over possibly.
Well, you could have vacation time and PTO.
But what do you do?
Yeah.
With people that turn their sick time into health insurance when they retire? You know? If you don't have sick time anymore,
I mean, a lot of companies don't even have sick time. They don't have
Correct.
paid sick time.
but
Look
we
like
offer
that.
an incentive to employees that have been here 15
Right.
years or longer
Yeah.
that they can use.
No, we're not voting on anything today, right?
I know,
I'm
but
just
it's
throwing
just
out.
that my
ideas.
head's about ready to explode. 'Cause I'm thinking, how am I
I'll shut
gonna
up.
keep track of who's on? And then,
Zach.
yeah,
So Calhoun County tried this. They tried to go to PTO. And there was about probably a year and a half discussion, department head meetings. Not knockdown dragouts, but it was very. It was discussed.
So were they lowering the number from 18 days or whatever it
No,
was to a lower
it was
number?
basically, what they tried to do is take what vacation, they tried to keep the same tiers very similar. But you took your vacation, you added in, let's just say half of your sick, and that made that the PTO. But there's so many things, what do you do with all the bank time? What do you do with, there are so many things. They finally came up with something, tried to sell it to all the employees and make sure they were okay with it. The board had to be okay with it. I left before it got done, but all the wheels were on the tracks, it was all laid out, and they pulled back and went back to what they were doing. As far as I know, there is not one county that does all PTO. There are different departments that will do PTO in the state, but not one county has ever been able to do all PTO, because there are a lot of figures and a lot of things that have to be worked out. I'm not saying you can't try, but that was not a fun conversation.
But both
There's a lot of
unions,
agreements are made through like unions and stuff.
Well,
unions don't
Not
cover
anymore.
attendance. Yeah, they don't cover attendance.
But there was per area.
Right, and that's-
there was.
Used to be, but that's not even a thing anymore. It's just trying to bring in how different people work, different hours and all that. It was a nightmare trying to come up with the equivalents of what those maximums and minimums and and really the biggest thing was what do you do if people have a bank full of sick leave? Yeah. And they came up with a catastrophic bank that you can keep that for big things. And it was it would have probably worked, but man, it was a large undertaking. And I know my personal feelings on it. It was a lot of conversations that didn't.
We've got a couple department heads here. Let's fill in that. About the change from 5 days to 10 days.
I think people will lie about it. I think you're right. It doesn't matter what it says. I think they'll
It's
lie.
still, they've got 18 days and we're saying
As
a
far as
little over
family
half
time.
of it can be used for family. I mean, 10 days.
As far as that, you're right. They'll just lie about it. So it doesn't, I don't, to me, that doesn't matter. I think we have a very lucrative sick leave program and
Did you have a problem with that? No, changing just,
You just have some that believe that if they have it, they'll use it. And you have others that they don't use it.
but if they've got 18 days, wouldn't they just say they're sick, use it instead of, yeah, I'm asking,
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where it would be a scheduling nightmare having,
Yeah, some departments that have multiple people, it's maybe easier for those that only have 2 employees. That's a little bit of a bind.
Zach, you probably got the most employees, is it, do you think it's abused in your department? I mean, do you keep track 5 days for little Johnny, or do you just a sick day is a sick day?
I plead the fifth.
Okay. So change it to 10.
I personally feel if you have sick time, you should be able to use it for yourself or
Your
taking
children,
care
your
of a child or
husband,
taking
your-
care of your spouse. If they're, I mean, if you're having to take care of a spouse because they're sick, they're pretty sick. You know, I mean, so,
Or your parents.
and it's your sick time, so
It
if
is,
you want to
yeah.
use it.
To me, it's about communication. It's about communication with your employees.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we can get rid of it, but the best part is it says your department head may allow, just under the family part of the 10 days. So, I mean, department head could be a bad guy and say, no, that doesn't require. Yeah. Just thought.
I guess in my opinion, it's fine to change it. I think it's relatively irrelevant, because I think people are gonna take it. Say,
But
for
this would
instance,
clarify it,
I mean,
or it
if
would make it.
somebody wants to go shopping because they want to say their son's sick, they're gonna do it anyway, and you're not gonna stop it.
We have those employees. So.
No,
Yeah, so I don't think that applies to. That's a
Everybody
bad
is.
example.
That's other places.
Can you try another example, please?
I can tell you that's the truth, that I had that happen to me one time and went shopping and walked in the door and walked in. So
And he was sick.
he's bringing us medicine.
He was going to get medicine, yeah.
you know, you always gotta
I
preach
know that
honesty is
happens.
the best policy, and I know you're not gonna get that all the time, but we'll just move forward with that one, the 5 to 10. Is there anything I'm not touching base on?
Yeah, I just gotta find it.
The one that says, I would agree that there should be an incentive for sick time that is built up, where we take, like, every 5 days of sick time equals 1 day of vacation, or, excuse me, as an example. We have those that use every single day of sick time, almost to the point it's misused, and those that don't use it at all. And I think what they're looking for is, if you've got 40 hours of built up sick time in a bank, can you trade that for a day or 2 or 3 or whatever is decided of vacation? I don't know, how many can you have? 3 weeks of, how much sick time can you build up per year?
999.
900 or something
Per year or all the
altogether.
In your total bank?
It's 9 something.
960. Well, it depends on, I guess, on your
If you're 40 or 30
40 or
something,
37 and a half too.
9 something. I think it's.
I think 40 days, 960.
24 weeks, it's half.
It's limited to 120 days.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Are we thinking about that?
So
one
do
still,
we,
or-
well, I have a question. Do we pay out? I think it's different with the unions maybe. Do we pay out? So they've got 24 weeks in their sick bank and they're getting ready to retire. Do we write a check for that amount? Or do they get their paid insurance and county benefits for that time while it's used?
Depends. So nobody gets paid out cash or
Okay.
a lump sum for sick time at all. If they meet the criteria in the handbook of having 15 years and they're eligible to retire. So if somebody decides to leave and they have 15 years and then they're 42 years old, no, they'd have to be, I think it says in there, IPERS eligible.
Yep.
So it's gonna be somebody that's older. They would qualify to turn in, I believe it's 10 days equals 1 month of insurance, single policy. So if you got your 120 days, 10 days a month, you get a year.
A year of paid insurance.
But there's criteria that has to be met, the 15 years.
Right.
And then if they don't have 120 days and they have less than that, they may get 6 months of insurance or.
So I wonder, was that suggestion for people who may not gonna be retired or become IPERS eligible to get extra vacation before they leave?
Maybe, or maybe just so it's a little more fair. Because right now, if you have somebody that has their sick time maxed out and they decide to retire, but they didn't work for the county for 15 years, they leave it, you know. Or also, if you have an employee that has their sick time maxed out and they choose to work for the county till they're 67, they can't get the free year of insurance because they're over 65. So they leave it behind too. And we've had employees that have had to do that.
So there's no reward or incentive for perfect attendance working for the county.
No,
Only for the one that retires.
Yeah, you get your year of free insurance.
so for me, I worked for the county for 7 years before I became auditor. I had my sick time maxed out at 7 years. But I don't get sick time as an elected official. So I'm not banking any sick time, so I won't get
So you
anything.
go back to punching the clock your last year.
Because I only worked, now if I had worked for the county for 15 years before I became auditor and had my sick time maxed out, then yeah, that's where some of our former elected officials were able to do that because they worked for the county for 20 years before they became an elected official. So, you know, I am not personally looking to go back to 2014 and say, oh, back then I had my sick time maxed out. I want something for it. I think it'd be something more for employees per se, that, or somebody that is earning sick time. But there's gonna be special circumstances, I think.
Is this a can of worms we even want to open as far as,
I don't know.
I mean, what would be fair for every week of sick time, you get 2 days of vacation time for every? Because that would keep building for an employee that doesn't use it now. If they're getting 4 weeks vacation and they don't use their sick time, that'd be 4 days, 4 weeks and 2 days, or whatever the magic number is.
Because I'm sure there's maybe some that are planning on this too. I've got enough life to find them.
Right. But I mean, for those who do have their banks full and are good on-time employees and don't use sick time, they would give a couple extra days vacation.
And I'm gonna throw another wrench in there. Okay, let's say you have an employee that's worked for the county for 20 years. They've had their sick time maxed out for 10 years, so they've not been earning anymore. They never use sick time, they're always healthy, and they're gonna retire in December of 2022. They get sick in, say, October, and they use a bunch of their sick time up. Well, guess what? When they go to retire, they probably don't have the 120 days. So they're not even gonna get the max benefit that everybody gets normally. So there's another wrench.
So is there anything broke the way it is? And this is
I
one
think
suggestion.
I think it's got lots of cracks in it that could be made better personally. But I think that is probably a discussion you're gonna have to have. You know, because right now we offer insurance if the employee's over 65 and they've met the other criteria, they can give it to their spouse. A free year of insurance. Well, personally, I feel that the sick time is not for the spouse, it's for the employee. And it
So I
should be
said the
the
husband and
employee's
wife work for the
benefit.
county?
No,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of wows here.
Yeah.
and the wow is that we have employees that are probably in the back of their mind thinking, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna be 66. My wife is 63, so she's gonna take my free year. And it's in the handbook now. I wouldn't want to take it away from anybody that's got it in their plans. So that may be something that you make
That's the
retroactive.
only thing you can do is put a hiring date.
I
From here,
think
that hiring
so.
date, these are gone and those go forward.
I think that's the fair
But
way.
boy,
to do
does
it.
that
Another
make-
addendum.
That makes another.
But the sick
nightmare
time,
for him to take
well,
care of.
you heard him say that they talked about time off, sick time, PTO time for a year, year and a half,
Yeah,
and then ended up just where they were at. There's a lot of.
that's why I'm asking if it's broke.
It's
You know.
got problems, I think. I think
I
there's
see.
some, I think there's some things in it that are unfair,
There's some equity issues there.
for sure. And I would love it to get looked at and be a little more, maybe you just say that this amount of sick time is worth X number of dollars. And if
Dollars
they-
or days vacation?
Dollars.
Dollars.
And if somebody chooses to use those dollars when they retire towards insurance, they can do that, or they can use those dollars and put them in their pocket. And it doesn't have to be 100% of the value, because right now a sick policy or a health insurance for a single person a month is close to $800. I mean, that's a lot of money, but I think if you gave the employee the opportunity to either take that free year, use their sick time to convert it into health insurance, or offered a,
I would say also
Alternative.
often time off, not dollars.
That's what's wrong with chat. Seems wrong.
Huh?
That just seems
Because
wrong.
they
right
could
in
work up
chat.
to the end of their termination or retirement. And then get a big check on that. I mean, yeah, they earned it. But then that's actually, as far as budgetary for the county, costing the county money, whereas if they take that time off, we've been paying them anyway. That, the only thing is they're not working.
one problem I see with that is people that have been here a long time have 3-4 weeks built up. And if they're gonna turn their sick time into vacation, they're not gonna be able to use it.
I know.
And you can only carry over 5 days.
Yeah.
So you'd almost have to have a separate little pot that converted sick time's going into. Or you'd have to change the amount of days you.
But I mean,
allow
I'm
to
looking at the
carry over.
liability issue. I mean,
Yeah.
It's just like we had an issue down at the ambulance. Got through it, I don't think I used around like this. But there was an issue there, and I think you were more than auditor, weren't you?
When we
There
had to
was
pay out a
some
bunch of comp time and,
Comp time and
it was
stuff,
like-
and there's a light.
yeah, it was crazy.
We need to make sure there's a time or a limited amount on that, otherwise we create ourselves a liability. we can't
Well, and
pay.
there is. I believe you have a max for comp hours that people can keep. I believe you guys do too.
Well, they do now, but they didn't at that time.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you think about that. If you have employees that are banking comp time and they get maxed out and they retire 15 years later, when it gets paid out, they're getting paid out at what they're making now. So
Let's just say there's a big liability.
it's, several of them,
I'm not
it's
trying to
$7,000,
say I begrudge
$8,000,
the employees of getting what they got to
Right.
do, but, we have to look out for the counties and taxpayers.
You've got those employees that'll turn it into vacation, and then when the time comes, they need sick time, they won't have it. And that causes an issue too.
Zach?
Another previous employer part, but they called them wellness days, and that's what they did. They converted, when you hit your max, that time kind of went into a pot. And when you build up 40 hours, that basically converted into a vacation that you have to take off. I think it was a good policy. It probably kept some people honest. Some people were still gonna abuse their sick leave, no matter what it was. Some people probably wouldn't have abused their sick leave, even if they didn't have the policy. The problem was they still continue to do it, I believe, but it's a bookkeeping nightmare as well, that conversion. And that was never a fun thing.
Part of that, you can make it a requirement that they have to have at least 40 hours
Or
or
be
X
maxed
number
out
of-
before you can
X number
convert it.
of hours in their bank. They can't convert that amount of hours to vacation.
It would help fear people from wanting to abuse the sick time if they knew they might be vacation there.
But they had actually had it maxed out. You gotta have it maxed out before you can convert anything. like that.
How long does that take us to do if you don't use it for?
I get a day and it's 18.
18 days a year.
a year. I'm not good at math in my head, so 18 days a year,
So if you work here
two,
for
3 years.
2 years, I mean, that's not that long, if you work for 2 years, that'd be motivation to not use your sick time for 2 years to get extra vacation.
It's
If you're not
It's
abusing the
longer
system.
than
like,
yeah,
it's like 6.5 years.
It's
Yeah.
6 years, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, yeah.
48 months.
Like I said, I've done that in my head.
Also, the vacation day, you'll pay that out, but the sick day, you may or may not pay that out. So that's another budget issue too.
There's a lot to talk about when it comes to sick time and.
I've got six of the full timers have a bank of about 12,000 hours of sick time. They're all full, so they can, I mean, you start converting that and you might have a coverage issue too, like for myself.
And they have a limit of you can only convert. I guess when you maxed out, you never got any extra, but they can only convert like 2 days a year. 2 days was the max you could convert it or something like that too. But again, there's, like you said, there's so many different ways, and again, it's a bookkeeping thing.
So your employees keep track of like above the max? Of their sick time?
A couple.
Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, what I'm saying is for their maxed out vacation or sick time that they have, there's 7 of them that are sitting at 1,728 hours. You know, if they start converting that, then you're paying that out instead of them still sitting on it.
Okay, real quick, I'm gonna bring this up and then we're probably gonna move forward. So we're gonna have to do a workshop on this, I think. An incentive for being at work every day, having sick time maxed out for years would be great. I've been maxed out for probably 5 years. I do think we're gonna have to have a lot of conversations with this, and I do think the department heads, each individual department head's gonna have to be involved with this too. So we're gonna move forward, so we're not here till 5 p.m. tonight.
Okay, I have one more that.
Not moving from the.
Oh, okay.
Just that section.
The one about the memberships to.
Gym membership.
Yeah. You know, we're self-insured, so having healthy employees is a huge benefit. There are departments that pay for memberships for their employees. I think that's great. I think it-
Has anything ever been discussed with the city when they give us a 40?
okay, so I think we used to get a discount back in the day, and then we did away with the discount, and then we still had some employees that were getting their full price membership through payroll, and we just paid their membership for them, but I think they did away with the discount. Possibly it could be
I
another,
think they did.
We could ask
Payroll
again.
went up too.
or it may be that instead of the rec center, you look at, I mean, the
Anytime
sheriff's
Fitness.
at Anytime Fitness, I believe, because they needed 24-hour access, and I think the rec might have something like that now, but
I asked him this
I don't
morning,
know.
he said that they have anytime and platinum, they use.
oh,
some of
both,
both.
okay,
So this is a conversation I thought would be good when they do their workshop with the insurance.
sure.
Because there is such a thing as a wellness program, and I know a couple private employers will offer maybe $50 if your employee goes and gets a physical, and it goes into an HSA program. That goes into that account. So you don't just give them $50, so that employee then won't have to sign up for an HSA. Plus, then you can add money into their account, which is receiving money, but you're not actually receiving cash. But I think that'd be a good opportunity to have that discussion when you guys have your.
I know there's one of our larger employers that does like a rec membership, but that employee has to use it so much, and they keep track of that, and if they don't use it, then.
Ken does the same thing with where his employees go, if they're not using it, he quits. And I think the city has 9 or 10 people who do it. But again, they have a physical fitness requirement, I think, or physical twice a year.
They have to
That they have
to test out of it too, so there's a
Right,
reason why
again,
they try
It
that.
should be,
Yeah.
I think it should be part of wellness. I think it should be promoted.
There's no point in having a membership if they're not going to utilize.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you're gonna have to keep track.
But I think if
You're
the
gonna have
employee
to set up
kicked
a
in just
policy
as,
that you use it this many days a month or whatever in order to have the county pay for it.
I think if the employee contributed a small amount, that would keep them active, or else they would quit the membership.
I agree, there should be environmental program too.
Just because the county offers it, and we pay for it, it's not like we get a group discount. We're still gonna be paying, walk in the door at full price.
So, yeah, I guess somebody might want to check with the city and see if they offer it. And, we have a lot of employees that don't live in Carroll. So maybe offer it in some of the other
You know,
communities as
those
well.
places that have it, they do use a fob.
Yeah, use the phone.
I wonder if that computer record can be generated and tell us how many hours you're actually checking in, checking.
You don't check out, but it could tell how many days you use it.
Okay, that'd give you a rough idea.
Exactly.
At least you wouldn't walk by and just say,
Right. Ken monitors it to make sure that they're using it. You know, they don't, I don't know if there's a requirement, like he sees somebody with dormant, it's gonna say, why am I paying $40 a month or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
One in general, is a bunch of code.
In the door, there's no.
but there's some type of computer record that you check
I would
in that day.
assume there would be, I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't know if we can get that report from them or not. That's the next, thing. How much would it cost them to print that report for us?
At a former employer that I had, we had that requirement. And it was through the YMCA and they would
They're not
send me
doing
every
it this year
month
because they don't have the.
a report and they just emailed it to me. And I could see who checked in
The
and
name of
they
They
had
send it to you or the
Whoever did
employer?
it. in the past, plus a couple
Well, I
people
was-
before, Katie Anthony.
I was basically HR.
Okay, yeah, but I mean.
So the
the
employer,
employer-
yeah,
Yesterday.
as the employer said to me, so that I could
Usually
monitor that, and then it was taken. If they met that requirement,
You don't have the equipment.
then I think we took like $50 off their health insurance premiums that month or something.
So if you use it so many times, it's just showing you're active.
Right.
That brings up another thing that you've
So that's
referenced
the
it
other
a couple
part of
times.
that.
It's now April.
County does, yeah.
We're through the budget. I think we'll probably all have a first health
So
meeting
if we're paying for it, it must not be public.
here soon, probably maybe next month.
Okay.
And start down that road. It's gonna take us a while to work our way
I
through
don't
some of
remember.
it.
I have to go back and look at last year's to see what we're paying.
Zach
Wanna say
volunteered
like
to
That was not a requirement.
chair it, so.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that.
Thanks, thanks for stepping up.
I think we can all agree, we could talk hours on this employee, but
Oh,
I think we
absolutely.
probably need to schedule a separate meeting so we can dive in, so
According
everybody
to
else
the
can know
minutes,
about the day.
Zach's chairing the wellness committee. You might want to write that down.
Okay, thank you.
Zach
Poor Zach.
I just didn't want that to go by without.
I think we touched base a little bit on all those comments. If there's any more that come in, I think we'll just do just a separate workshop in general for employee handbook. All right, next item on the agenda is review and consider approval for ambulance employee handbook. Jamie has been here in the past and brought
Yeah.
the same exact handbook minus one thing he took out. You want to explain that?
So when it was passed, the last meeting I was here, it was per John looking at it. He referred us to Renee. So I went to Renee and emailed it to her. She looked at it and said, basically, the only thing she told me was take the probationary period out because I was an at-will state. And that will contradict that and could cause an issue in the future. So I took that part out. That's the only change I made to it since the last time I was here.
Where was the probationary?
It was way at the bottom, where the very last thing.
I just want to make sure I got the right copy. I have like too many.
It should be on the one with the rationales, the red one there.
Okay. So this one that says revised 0331 is the current.
Right. Yeah, that's the second one. That's the one I sent you.
Okay. I'm like, somebody goes, well, you gave me the old one, and I'm like, right now, like, right now. I'm not sure the right one.
Yeah, because I went through and I took all the rationales and stuff out. But other than that, it's the same thing as what you guys looked at last time.
So basically, he wants another new motion that he has to fill for the.
Because last time we sent him directions, get it approved by, I'll make a motion that we approve the 03/31/22 revised Carroll County Employee Handbook Addendum for ambulance service. Now still second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for sticking around all morning.
So it's lunchtime.
I saw you walk in. I was like,
So Jamie's gonna be vice chair.
Yeah.
all right.
Why do you keep giving me some up and away?
Item number 6. Secondary roads. Good morning, Zach.
Morning.
How are you?
Oh, not too bad. It's Monday.
few things on the list today. We did receive bids on last Thursday for our HMA resurfacing of E19 up by Lanesboro, just 2 miles. We received 2 bids, one from Inroads and one from Henningsen Construction. As you can see, and as you might have guessed, costs are going up, whether it's fuel or
We need a
material.
better county engineer estimator.
Well, I could put an estimate together today and it'd been better than what it was a month ago or 2 months ago, so.
It's getting hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think fuel is a big part of it, and might be my guess, and obviously I haven't had any conversations directly, but, and just material prices in general. I mean,
Well, we're dealing with the barrel of oil in some way or another.
Mhm.
And
2 ways, the cost of the asphalt, the cost of the truck.
Well, not only that, look what we, the last gravel contract we got, how much that went up.
One thing is I think this is a small enough project that I think even if you went out for bid in a month, I think the prices would be even higher yet. I mean, I don't know if they are gonna correct or not, but I still think we got some pretty good bang for our buck on what this is. It's a Loader is a reputable contractor that we've done work with before. I don't really see any reason not to do it, because I think it's only gonna get more expensive.
Is this the contractor that you was kind of initially thinking?
Yeah, they
Or these two?
yeah, well, there was a third contractor a local contractor I thought was gonna bid that they have decided that they were full, that they didn't have enough room in their schedule to do any more work. So, for whatever that means, but, both of these contractors are doing work somewhat in the area, not in Carroll County, but somewhat in the area, where they could service us, and that's why they gave us numbers. So, obviously they're not gonna move a plant for 2 miles, and we knew that. That's what we were kind of looking for, an opportunity, and that's kind of what this is, so. Questions?
bids with 1%. Actually pretty close. That's pretty good. I mean, I'm not happy with them, but it appears that they're both in the same.
Inroads really does good work, so.
The thing that I'm disappointed about is how, I don't know how the Templeton Road is, but the Breeda Blacktop is just falling apart. I mean, when did we do that? 3 years ago? 4 years ago, maybe? But it hasn't been 5 years.
The cracks are showing up.
Incredible.
You know, Dean, I don't know, there's a good way to get rid of them. They always come through. I wish there was, some of the ideas ran that off, is supposed to do that like freely.
Well,
I don't know,
years ago, they thought that the full depth reclamation, where you grind it all up and then roll it back in and do over top. Well, there was issues with that. Then you've seen a lot of rutting after that because the compaction wasn't good enough underneath. There's lots of, I guess, ways you can try to avoid it. I mean,
Because it looks to me like, after 5 years, you're gonna have to start repairing it. I mean,
Well-
those cracks are that big and they're every 20 feet.
Mother Nature hasn't been kind to us. The dry weather hasn't helped us, in my opinion. We're hoping to ramp up and do a little bit more crack sealing, crack filling, and trying to keep the water out. But that doesn't improve the ride. That basically is you're trying to save the life, extend that life of the pavement. But it's part of the deal. I mean, unfortunately, even if you do concrete, if you want to do full depth concrete, those have cracks built in. So I mean, they're there from the get go. But the way Carroll County is set up with the roads that we have, concrete's a tall task on a lot of these roads because you're talking about a lot of cost. Where you can do a mill and fill for a little bit more reasonable dollars. So I still think we'll get 20 years out of the life of that pavement. I really do.
So on the Sac County line, north Ag line, Sac County did that
Concrete overlay.
concrete overlay. And that has held up very well over the last, I don't know, how long has that been in there? That's, you know, Sac County did, that's probably.
It was right before I got there. It's probably been there for 8 to 10 years.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it is.
They've had to patch a few places. I don't know if on that road, but I know
I'll
on.
look, I guess, but, you know,
But-
I mean,
but overall-
I just wonder if there's a, you know, a different option. I know that up by Kyron, north of Kyron, they did concrete there. You're probably familiar with that. I just wonder if in some of these instances, you say, the Carroll County is really not set up to change.
You could do a concrete overlay, but the biggest thing is you got to remember, and from a right of way standpoint, we are, because you're going up in the air. Every time you do a concrete overlay, you're generally not milling anything off. You're just building on top. Where we do a mill and fill, where we are milling off an inch or inch and a half or 2 inches and keeping that profile a little bit lower, so we're not adding as much on the shoulders. The cost for a concrete overlay is substantially more than
Yeah, I would
a
have to think so.
than an asphalt overlay. And then if you start talking about the areas where we have a paved shoulder, that gets exemplified a little bit more. So
I don't know.
it's definitely something we can look into.
It looks to me to be a concern because I just can't believe there's that much deterioration of that road already.
Windmill traffic.
But you're, I know what you're saying. Those previous cracks come through so fast anymore. It seems like.
Well, once you
I
get
know
a
the
crack
ones
in,
with
then
the-
it's just gonna be worse because the moisture gets in there and then it freezes and, you know, then you get all kinds of
And
issues.
then when you do that seal thing, then you lose your right.
That's all.
There's some roads that have held up. I mean, well, west of Breda, I mean, that's a 20-year-old asphalt.
Yeah, and that's
it's-
not bad.
It's, the
But it
cracks are
doesn't have the
there.
traffic.
The cracks are there, but it's
Yeah.
still holding up. So it's,
I think that the roads that we cut in there, did we cut that one in center of the line, cut that?
Nope.
We didn't do that.
You look at the word they do that, they really are falling apart.
especially if it was an existing pavement. If it's a new one, I think they do last for a while, but if you try to cut those rumble strips into existing pavement that's 10, 15 years old, it really falls apart. Highway 30.
But I
is
mean,
a
You're just
perfect
inviting
example.
water and salt.
You are.
The road.
Yeah, you got that center line that cuts there anyway,
Mhm.
or that joint, and then when you cut that in there, that's just going right down in there, and then
It's
it's
a
popping and.
it's a trade-off between your daily traffic, how high a traffic count you have, and safety versus what your cost is going to repair your roads. My assumption is that DOT has made the determination that for their higher travel roadways, it's worth it to try to do that. And I think, I'm sure it does help prevent some accidents, but on lower travel roadways, lower volume travel roadways, it's really hard to make that jump. Plus, their roads are wider, their lanes are wider, the roads are wider.
There's no other issues. I'll make a motion that we accept the bid of $512,409.38 inroads for the 2-mile stretch southeast of Lansville for research.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Construction update, they are continuing to work on the N3 bridge northeast of Templeton. They have the east abutment and both piers, the pile driven, they're actually working on gonna pour the east abutment, I believe, today, and then they'll be driving on the west abutment, so they're making progress. The weather had slowed them down a little bit, but they're still moving forward, so. A few other things as far as department update. They are making gravel up of the Reinhardt pit. They moved in middle of last week, and started working up there. So they are putting gravel up for us there. The Burlington Northern Railroad is working on replacing a deck on Falcon Avenue, the bridge over the road. That's their bridge. That timber deck has been very bad for a long time.
Underpass.
The bridge goes under our road. Our road goes over top of their bridge, or over top of theirs.
West of town, by that water tower, no,
Yep.
south of that water tower.
It's, the deck was very,
But they don't have the road closed, correct?
yes, the road is
Yeah, it
closed.
is
Yeah,
closed,
because it's, I don't know how far they got last week. We closed it on Monday for them. They moved in. But I think they're waiting for some materials, so they're working on it. They thought 2 to 3 weeks to get that completed.
That's north of.
That's west of town.
So there's that stop sign there, and if you go,
You go over the pavement, you
Yep.
take gravel, another mile, and then turn south, around a quarter mile, run into the water tower, north Jason, right?
Mhm.
Or west and south.
Just north of 141. And then the last thing on the list, obviously didn't bring them to you for review today because we need to have some time to review them, but we have 2 large utility permits for fiber that have gotten dropped off in our lap. One down by around the Manning area, and another one that I'll say countywide, it's various locations, Dedham, Halber, around Carroll and whatnot, but lots of miles, lots of roads to review and culverts, so.
Where's that one? Western Iowa.
Western Iowa has one of them, and Manning Municipal Utilities has the other. So, but like one plan that was 227 pages, and the other one was about 90, so.
Wow. So you're reviewing those and then you'll bring them to the board after that. meeting?
Yep. Just wanted to kind of give a heads up.
appreciate that. Anybody have any more questions for Zach?
Thanks for stepping up and chairing that committee, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
I'll be-
Yeah, congratulations on your appointment.
It's been noted in the minutes.
Okay, next item on the agenda, we have a few plots to approve.
I think there's just one. isn't there?
I think there's just one.
Is there just- Oh, yeah, there's just one.
That one was the annexation of Thompson.
So is this property that's been change ownership last couple of years? My plat.
Probably.
I know where it's at, it's just splitting off some edges.
I think a mother passed away.
Huh?
I think there was
Oh,
a
yeah.
death in the family.
that's it.
Mhm.
If nobody has any questions, I'll make a motion to approve that.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item number 8, the CDBG Down Payment Assistance Program Certificate of Compliance.
Yeah, this is just,
Formality.
well, it was sent to me from Region 12. She requested that we get it on the agenda for approval for the down payment assistance program. Basically, just list what the procurement trends or standards are for this project. So,
Same program we're in, just.
correct, correct. We already did this for the last year, but since we have a different chair.
Probably want a motion
I'll make
to,
a motion for the chair to sign the certificate of compliance for CDBG down payment assistance program.
been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. That's for me. All right, next item, we have approved a fireworks permit for Carroll Country Club.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I also wanted to note that this is dated for July 3rd, right?
Rain day, July.
Rain day, July 4th, just so the public has a notice. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 10, manure management annual updates. Betty Fisher Farm, Section 5, Wheatland Township. Change in crop rotation for optimum yield due to manure analysis. Neist Fisher Farm, Section 5, Neist Township. Change crop rotation or optimum yields used manure analysis. Mark Haida, number 3, Section 24, Roselle Township, is a 4-year plan. Woodford Creek Farms LLP, number 752, Section 9, Union Township, crop rotation or optimum yields. And the final item is committee reports.
I can go first. Last Monday, I did tour the jail before our meeting. First time I've seen what the prisoners are, everything seemed to be going well. Tuesday, I attended the Board of Health meeting. Was there also. Thursday, we all had SEH discussion on the future of the courthouse. This week, I have Region 12 Policy Council with Stephanie and Rich on Thursday night.
Yes. Last week, all I had was SEH on Thursday. Depending on a phone call or two, I may have CABC tomorrow. May not be able to make it. Wednesday, I have a Zoom meeting for the governance board for mental health. That's to hire a person. And on Thursday, I have reading 12. And Saturday is legislative forum.
Where's that?
And Glidden.
Courtney, real quick, Friday night also, I rode with the K9 unit for the sheriff. So I was in the kennel.
You to ride along?
I was the kennel, collar and all.
Did he bark at you?
I can go next.
He turns on the reds, that dog goes
Just
crazy.
like everybody else, I had
Freeze out,
SEH. I did attend the chamber banquet. I saw Jean there. This upcoming week, I have Regency 12 Policy Council Thursday night, newspaper and radio, and the legislative forum. And
At 10 o'clock.
yeah, and it will be at the new shelter house, correct?
Think so.
I think
I'm not sure.
I am taking because I didn't mention that.
Okay. Yeah, I can go next. This last week I did the radio and paper. I attended the chamber banquet. On Thursday, then we had 2 opportunities at a board meeting. We went through the financials. We did approve a line of credit extension of $300,000. We've done that every year for, I don't know how many years, but it's been a long time since we used it, but the only time we used it, there's a cash flow issue due to grants and stuff, but we haven't had to use it, but we have it in place. Basically went through all the reports that I talked about last week with the policy council. Also did approve the tobacco nicotine free policy. That's the policy council did approve. And then we also approved the heat weatherization assistance amendment. Originally it was $312,707. They got an additional $355,416. That brings up to $668,123. We did have a program in regard to family development self-sufficiency grant. This is a $230,000 a year grant that we're getting. And then also we have a program, there's also a program now called Low Income Home Water Assistance Program, where if someone's behind in the arrears on the bill, in the process of being shut off, there's money available for that now also. That's called Y1, I guess. And then we went over the CARF review, and that was basically about it. Oh, and also that family development staff self-sufficiency program, that's for Carroll, Green, Boone, and Dallas and Auburn County. Those are the areas that were set up by the state. Then this week I have CADC on tomorrow, Tuesday, and then the legislative forum Saturday. That's all I have. this time, and that's subject to change.
Were you at the SDH meeting?
Oh, yes, I was at the, didn't I have that on there? Oh, yeah, I did too. SCH.
Okay.
Courtney, thanks for keeping track.
Yeah,
I knew you were, but I just
Thanks for
wanted to make
keeping
sure.
track of
Yeah.
You did. I was gonna write it down.
you know, and I thought that was a very good meeting. So I thought we got a lot accomplished. So,
There's a lot of good conversation.
A lot of work to do.
oh, yeah,
Mhm.
we're a long ways from
That's
you.
kind of what I got out of that. Last week I had Board of Health meeting on the 29th, and then the SEH meeting on Thursday. This week, at this point in time, I have nothing, but that's probably gonna change.
Anything online?
Nothing that I haven't sent you yet, so you're good.
Thanks, Dalton and Courtney.
Looks like next week.
Courtney, it looks like we'll all have a Zoom meeting on 4/11.
Or
Assessor.
Conference board.
border review. There is a
Border review,
person that's gonna
election.
be filling a position.
Did we get anybody to do that?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
So,
Somebody didn't know better. Somebody didn't know better. We got them started.
That was just gonna be after our,
yeah, and I don't have to do anything with that. We'll just make sure to kind of keep the meeting like not super long on the
So
11th.
that's Monday after our regular meeting.
So the only thing I have for next week right now is bill day.
So the conference board is at noon,
via Zoom.
oh, by Zoom.
Yes.
Maybe we
You
should
have the opportunity to,
I think we should make it a long meeting if it's not.
well,
I was gonna say that, if we're gonna do it here, that we can go home and do it too.
yeah, for instance, like if our meeting gets done at 10, even if you had to Brita, you don't need to drive all the way back.
Is Sitch Day, Day next week.
Yeah.
I got some too.
Oh, I'm sorry. We may or may not, and I hope to have information on our final budget amendment for fiscal 22.
Those finance programs we'll look at next week.
A what?
Or the Iowa DOT 5-year program.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion in a second, any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So what does this do when we approve fireworks permit? This,
We
the
do.
no, but I mean, the comm center knows that they,
In case somebody calls.
are we liable if there's an explosion or they catch a cornfield on fire?
No.
Okay.
It's that and then to let the general public know.
Actually, I think that we have to have that notification.
And keep in mind too, the employee handbook, don't let that go to that. Thinking about different scenarios.